If the Lions go 12-4, I'm sending this tape in to ESPN.
One for the chance, baby. We don't win in the specific years that I want us to win. Let's go! I was big on them and so was Chandler. Because he's not the better player. Watch them play football.
Oh my God, you watched the highlights? Did you watch Johnny Manziel's highlights when he... Whoa, guys. Look at me. I'm going to go throw the ball.
If Stidham outperforms Newton, Stidham's going to start. That's all you have. How are you going to win the division with that? How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nosebleeds Podcast, where today we have our weekly NBA playoffs episode, where we're going to be recapping the past week of basketball. My name is Nick Antonakis, and I'm lucky to be joined by the basketball crew. We got Chandler Betts and Stuart Brooks here, back for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. How you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Before we start today's episode, we just found out recently today, NBA players are going to be boycotting games as of late to light some more focus on the racial inequality issues that are happening in the United States now. So we won't be giving any predictions for the week ahead, but we'll still be giving you a recap of the past week. And then if there are games in the next week, we're going to just make an Instagram post or something like that addressing the viewers with our predictions. So on that note, I say we just dive into it. We have this is kind of the debut episode for our new structured type of episodes of the Nosebleeds Podcast. We're trying to implement some more segments and stuff like that to engage the viewers. So let's start and kick it off with one of our new segments. We got the rapid fire recap. So you guys ready to dive into it?
Yeah.
Let's go. Rapid fire recap. All right, so in the rapid-fire recap this week, what we're going to do is we're just going to go around, give a 30-second to 1-minute spiel on each of these series, just our overall thoughts. There isn't much to talk about with these ones, but, a good way to just fire out all your opinions in one go. So we'll start with the Bucks versus the Magic series. Who wants to start?
I can start. So what we learned in this series is absolutely nothing. We learned that the Magic are very good at winning game ones and then nothing else. We all knew they weren't going to have a chance. It was somewhat impressive to win game one, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They get 2 days less rest. Oh no, DONIS is going to be so bad now. He's gonna fall apart. No, obviously not. We know that Nikola Vucevic is a very on and off player who can score the ball very well when he's playing well. And we know that he has nothing else around him. As much as I like DJ Augustine, he has nothing. That whole team has nothing. They're just becoming the Pistons, basically, in the sense that they don't have any actual stars. And eventually they're just going to fall off of a cliff and get the first pick not the first pick in the draft, but they're going to get a very high pick. And they're just going to need to completely rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really much else to say. I mean, there was definitely some buzz after Milwaukee lost that first game, and it was kind of not a blowout, but it was definitely a convincing win by the Magic. But, since then, it's just basically a blowout in every game. The only thing that I can really take away positive in this whole run is Fultz has looked pretty good. But outside of that, I mean, it just seemed like, it was good, feel good win for game one, but that's about it.
I will say this, although the Bucks have been dominant ever since that game one loss, winning 3 straight on the Magic, and they're probably going to finish them out in game 5 whenever that ends up happening. But I will say that game one loss made the Bucks seem a little bit more human, a little bit weaker than everybody's anticipating them to be. So I think this series kind of exposes them as not the clear favorite to win the East. I think there's going to be a little bit more competition than everybody else is thinking. So,
okay. I disagree, vehemently. It's just one game they lost, and they won 3 in a row. Teams lose games all the time. Doesn't really matter.
I mean, okay. That's just what I believe, but,
You're wrong, okay.
You're wrong, yeah.
All right. So we'll move on. to the Heat versus the Pacers series. Everybody thought this was going to be a lot closer, but the Heat take it away in 4.
I thought it was going to be a little closer. I mean, the fact that I didn't have Sabonis was kind of like the important thing, but because he's probably their best player. But, yeah, the whole Pacers team just didn't really – there was not one guy who really stepped up other than Brogdon played pretty well in a few of the games. But, yeah, it just wasn't very competitive. Like, the games were competitive in themselves, but every fourth quarter the Heat just pulled away. Butler played well. Basically, the whole team. Goran Dragic played great. Now they're moving on to play what is most likely to be Milwaukee, which should be an interesting series.
So I have some things to say, not necessarily about the series, but about the Pacers in general. I think that they're in a very interesting position this upcoming offseason. They don't have their first-round pick, even though this is a really weak draft. That's still relevant. It would have been pick 24, and it's going to Milwaukee. And their 3 best players are – you have Victor Oladipo, who he just needs to be healthy. If he can be healthy, then he's a borderline third-team All-NBA player. You have Domantas Sabonis, who was just an All-Star this year. And you have Miles Turner, who is another valuable player. Having said that, those two are really bad when they play together. So when you have 2 long-term contracts for 2 of your star players, and they can't coexist, that is a really bad sign. And I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't call Miles Turner a star, like, at all.
Not a star. I meant a star on their team, as in their big 3. Brogdon's good, but I would still consider Miles
He's like an
Turner
average player, I'd say. So, yeah,
okay,
I mean,
whatever.
I think he's probably their 5th best player.
Okay, 2 players in the starting lineup, especially the power forward and center, is more what I meant. But they have they have a negative net rating when they're together. And
yeah, I mean, they should just flip them.
I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Turner is no longer a Indiana Pacer going into next season.
I'd be shocked honestly if he wasn't. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they flip him for like a second-round pick, like barely any, like very little value because yeah. I mean, also, I think they probably could let Oladipo go too. He hasn't really, he's still recovering from his injury. He hasn't looked that good, and they have 2 other wing scorers who have proved themselves to at least score 20 a game. So they probably want to save their cap. I mean, and they also fired their head coach, which I thought was kind of a mistake, but I mean, they're kind of stuck. I mean. I honestly think that the organization just wants to sell tickets. Of course they do. And Indiana is a big basketball area, but, they probably just want to keep this team together for a few more years so that they don't have to go into rebuilding mode. But, it's very hard for me to see the Pacers competing for a championship in the near future unless, something crazy happens, like Giannis goes there or something.
Yeah. I also do think it was a big mistake for them to fire Nate McMillan. As we've seen, pretty much every player that's gone to Indiana has gotten better from where they were before to where they are now. So I think that was a big mistake, and I think we might touch upon that later, specifically about Nate McMillan.
Wait, did the Bulls hire a head coach?
No, not yet. They just
I think he would be a good fit there.
He would be. I think he would be a good fit
because he's player friendly and he's good at evaluating, and they have a lot of young talent. So
yeah, I mean, literally anybody would be a better fit.
Jim Bowen, yeah.
One of the worst coaches ever.
Yeah, I think you guys have probably just covered it all. But, I will say that, a Heat versus Bucks matchup in the next round will definitely be interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Heat can do against the ever so great Bucks. So now we'll move on to the Raptors versus the Nets. Another series that was very predictable. Raptors taking it away in 4 games. And I honestly thought the Nets were going to compete a little bit more than they actually did. Game 1 and 2 were just they were brutal. I mean, all the games were pretty brutal, but game 1 especially was just a brutal loss for the Nets.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the series I'd really say about, the Nets don't have any of their players at all. The Raptors are the defending champs, and they got done in the sweep. That's all I have to say.
Nets fans, be excited for when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant come back and literally everybody else in your team come back, and then you probably still only be the 3rd best team in the East because who's believer in Kyrie anymore. Pretty much every team except Cleveland. Every team. Celtics got a lot better after he left.
Yeah, but I still think he could be a good second option.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be a good combo.
He could be a great
They're both very
option.
ball dominant. Kevin Durant's shown that he can do it with Curry, but
He can do it with Westbrook. I think he can do it with Kyrie Irving. I think they're going to be fine.
Well, Westbrook wasn't like as ball dominant of a player back then. He was, but he wasn't as he didn't demand the ball in the same way that.
I would wager that it's going to work out. These are two of the most talented players of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll work, but I mean, it's just I don't think KD's going to be the same player that he was when he was.
That's
Golden
the only
State.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only
I think it'll work about
His
as
injury's going
just
to be
about as well as it did in Boston, and you can say it worked well in Boston because it didn't work terribly. But also, I think it's just going to be a similar situation with just one more extremely talented player, instead of a platoon of good players. I've one of the best scorers of all time, who might not be the same exactly. That's a good point.
If he is, I think they can compete for a champion. But
yeah. Yeah, I will say. I mean, I didn't think that the Nets were going to win a game in this series, but I just thought that the games had been a little bit closer than they actually were. They were starting to look good at the end of the regular season in the bubble. They had some pretty impressive wins there, but it's just I knew they were going to lose in 4, but it's just losing that badly was a little bit shocking to me. That's all. But Raptors are looking scary. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Celtics in round 2. All right, and then we have finally our last series to recap in the rapid fire recap segment. We got the Lakers and the Blazers, a series that was looking great from the start. The Blazers came away with a win in game 1. Lillard popped off, but ever since then, the Lakers have started to take more and more control of the series.
Yep.
LeBron's finally playing basketball.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. In game 2, he actually looked even worse, but the rest of the team played a lot better. And then since then, it's just been brutal. I mean, there's game 5 is obviously being postponed, but whenever that is to happen, I don't see any chance the Blazers can win another game.
Do you think Dame's going to be back?
I'm not sure. I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I could see them winning one more game.
Nick, did you not watch the last game? They lost by 40 points.
It was really bad.
And
it looked bad, but, if Dame is back to what he was before and earlier in the series, Dame had an off night. That was a bad night for Dame.
Nick, do you remember how confident we were that the Celtics were going to sweep the Sixers after we absolutely destroyed them?
Yeah, but at least the Blazers have an actual win in this series. And they were harder than the Sixers were in the bubble. So
I mean, I just don't think it matters.
I'm just saying they could get another game.
No, they couldn't.
I mean,
it's not impossible at all.
It's not, Nick.
Right.
It's also not impossible that in the beginning of the playoffs, the Magic could have swept the Bucks. Just because something isn't physically possible doesn't mean it's going to happen.
I don't mean physically possible. I'm saying that the
what percent chance do you think that the Portland would beat the Lakers in Game 5 if Dame's healthy?
40%. I'll give it 40, maybe 30.
I'll give it 9%. That's being a little generous.
9%?
Yeah, 9% chance that the Blazers beat the Lakers in Game 5.
If Dame is healthy?
Yep. If he's fully healthy, but he's not going to be fully healthy. That's not how the body works.
Well, obviously, but if he's healthier than he was in the past game, at least he'll be a little.
He didn't play in the end, so if he's playing, I still give it a 9% chance.
Okay, I mean, just agree to disagree, I guess. I mean, I don't think.
Drew, you're the tiebreaker. What do you say?
I think he's going to say the Lakers. Obviously, I think the Lakers are going to win the game.
What's your percent?
Sometimes I wonder why we do this. I give the Lakers a 95% chance of winning, maybe even higher. Are you serious?
I really hope
the last two games
the Blazers
have been
win. I can't wait until
the last two games have been complete blowouts. I mean, the only thing that I could see happening wouldn't be because Dame is healthy. It'd be because the Blazers are trying to save their pride. Why, Nick? He was not hurt before the game, and then he was hurt during the game.
I didn't say healthy at the start.
So how could he be more healthy now? That literally makes no sense.
I didn't even say
all.
Healthy at the start. What I said at the start was if he returns to the form he was playing in game 1.
He won't. He just got hurt.
What if he does is what I'm saying. Then they're going to win the game.
Okay, and what if I grow 9 inches
Nick,
in the next
how much, Nick, what was Dame's
days?
best game of the series? What was Dame's best game? How much did he score? Do you remember?
Game 1, he scored like 45
He had
points.
34 points. Is that really going to make them win after losing by 35 points? The rest of the team's playing absolute shit.
Not by that much. I'm still giving the edge to the Lakers here, but I'm just
more than
saying
an edge.
that
There's an entire front.
I'm just at 5% chance. That's ridiculous.
10 maybe. No, it's not. They're much worse. The Lakers are the title favorites right now. They have two of the 5 best players in the league, arguably. Dame is hurt, which we do have to acknowledge. The rest of the team is playing like shit. They lost 3 games in a row. There's no momentum. There's no home crowd. There's literally no argument here to be made for the Blazers other than that the team doesn't want to get swept. I mean, doesn't want to go out in 5. There's no argument here. The only argument you can make is that games just happen. Sometimes one team happens to play really well. So maybe Portland could somehow, by grace of God, have a win. But I'm giving them a 5% chance because that's the percent chance that they have based on all the factors that we're talking about. That's how you analyze sports. All right, let's move on to the next topic.
Okay, that's the rapid-fire recap. Ending on a rapid, angry note. Here we go. Into the main recap we go. So we have the Celtics versus the Sixers, a series that many Celtics fans have been extremely happy about as of late. You know, Celtics getting the sweep done in 4, and then the Sixers firing their head coach. It looks like there's finally going to be a drift of change in the Sixers locker room, which was a disaster all throughout the regular season and the bubble and in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just comparable to the Celtics last season. It just didn't work out at all. And even more so, the Celtics at least kind of had a okay fit. This team did not fit whatsoever. Horford just completely declined. Tobias Harris, I mean, he was okay during the regular season, but he completely did not show up in these games. Respect to him for coming back after that injury, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's not much to say about the actual games. I mean, just like the other series we're talking about, it's just a pretty dominant up and down. Game 4, they did put up somewhat of a fight, and I'll give Embiid for trying some credit for trying his best out there, but the Celtics just had too much offense. They just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, I would agree with Chandler, go ahead, sorry.
It just wasn't it wasn't going to happen, and the 76ers are I don't think they're in a good position this upcoming free agency and just in the future, because they have terrible contracts. They probably have 2 of the 3 worst contracts in the NBA right now, in Al Horford and Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
So Tobias Harris, again.
I mean, Horford's I think is worse, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, definitely Al Horford's is worse.
At least I can say that Tobias Harris can contribute to it. Like, I'm not sure how much Al Horford can contribute at this point in his career. Like, he's a bench player. At least Tobias Harris, I think he can be like a decent starter. I mean, he's overpaid, but at least he can play. But I just don't understand the Horford contract.
Like the Nick Batum contract when he went to Charlotte.
We're better than that. He can't even do anything.
How much more? Like Nick
Batum is averaging like 7 a game right now. And
Nick Batum, like when he signed that contract, he was like an 11.5-point scorer or something.
Yeah, you know how much Tobias Harris scores a game? Like almost 20. He's still pretty good. I mean, he's not great. He's probably not an all-star, but, he's at least Robert Covington, or maybe a better version of Robert Covington.
He is. That Robert Covington is a good comparison there.
A better Robert Covington.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's a huge contract for a player. That should be like a contract that Tatum has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the whole Brett Brown thing, specifically for that, I mean, he came in 2013, I believe. That was the start of the process. So he's been there the whole time. Like, his first draft was the Nerlens Noel draft. I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, he's been there the whole time. He has a very bad coaching record, but that's because he's coached some really bad teams. But there have been at the end, and I say at the end, I mean like now, there were a lot of reports coming out. It was like, oh yeah, Brett Brown doesn't like confrontation in his locker room.
So therefore, he lost Jimmy Butler, who was easily the best player.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also JJ Redick, who was perfect player to play with those two. I mean, honestly, regarding Jimmy Butler, this team could have not traded Saric and Covington, and not traded Fultz, and not got rid of JJ Redick, and they would have had all these assets. They would have had Simmons and Embiid still. They would have had Saric. They would have had Covington. They would have had Fultz. And they could have had maybe still had Tobias Harris, or maybe don't even trade for Tobias Harris and you keep Landry Shamet. I mean,
yeah,
like I don't understand. Like this team could have had a ton of assets and still a decently talented roster that could compete for the playoffs, but they just completely mortgaged their future for a team that's arguably worse than what they had 2 years ago. So there's basically not much to say. I mean, the worst thing I think was doing that trade for Jimmy Butler, giving up 2 really good assets and picks, and then he only plays there for half a season. I mean.
Yeah.
At that point, you just have to start crying.
Mistake, yeah. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I think this move is definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, maybe they can start to turn things around, but it's looking more like they're just gonna have to, clear it out and start over again because, it's not working. If they can there's a chance that they can make a turnaround with the core that they have right now, but it's looking more and more like they're going to have to clean the slate and restart.
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
what's the next one?
I think that's pretty much it for now. Then we have the Clippers and the Mavs series, which has been a surprisingly really good series. The Clippers are up 3-2 now. Luka absolutely popped off in Game 4. We'll go into that a little bit first, and then why don't we just start from the top of the series? There's not
Mavs
a bunch to talk about, but,
Yeah, Game 1 and 2 kind of went similar ways. We already talked about Game 1 and the other podcast, but Game 2 was a pretty impressive win by Dallas. And then Game 3 was another decent win by the Clippers. And then obviously we get to Game 4, which was the arrival of Luka with a sprained ankle, just playing his absolute heart out. And also the other storyline of Paul George from Games 2 to 4. I don't know if I've seen.
My God.
I've been watching play probably since 2013, and I've never seen, other than like the Roy Hibbert moment, for a star player to just completely disappear. Like he in Game 3 or Game 4 especially, if he hadn't played, they might have won because he shot 3 of 14. Those shots could have gone to literally anyone else, and they would have been better shots. I mean, at that point, it seemed like he didn't want to shoot, but towards the end of the game. But I don't know. I mean, he played well in Game 5, so that's good to see. And the Clippers, I would say that they're probably going to win the series now. But and obviously it was interesting to see what Luka was doing.
That was atrocious. Oh, yeah, sorry, Chandler, go ahead.
I was just going to say that a report came out after Game 5, after Paul George finally bounced back, that it was basically him saying, the bubble destroyed me mentally. And I was very confused by that because, he just generally doesn't have a good reputation since he destroyed Ryan Birdman's career. I don't even know his real name, Chris Anderson, I think.
Basically, since he got to OKC, he's been pretty bad in the playoffs.
Bad in the playoffs. Playoff P is there for a reason. Mm-hmm. And
it's not his worst playoff game, though.
What?
There's another – 2 years ago when they played Utah in the first round, OKC.
Yeah, he had 43.
He shot – no, Paul George, like when he played on the Thunder, he shot 2 of 16 from the field and scored 5 points in the playoff game.
Oh.
So that's actually worse than this other game over here.
I think I heard somewhere that he's like the first player in playoff history to shoot below 30% in the first 4 games of a series.
Below 30, yeah.
He's shooting, I think, 28% right now, which that's good for baseball. That's really good for baseball.
Good for
hitting
baseball.
280.
But it's like realistic.
Literally a game of failure. Basketball.
You're supposed to at least shoot 40.
Don't get me wrong. It's not easy, but it's comparatively easy to shoot.
Those are Knicks stats right there.
Those are Knicks stats right there.
But yeah, Paul George.
It was
good to see him back in form, but I question how long that can happen.
Yeah, I think definitely the return to form in Game 5 was promising, but his performance in Game 4 was terrible. While I think we should dive a little bit more into Luka's performance in Game 4 because that was
everybody else
incredible.
talks about it all over the internet, so there's not much to say, man.
I know, but 43 points.
Moral of the story: he's
rebounds.
Really good at basketball.
Yeah,
he came alive. He was in, and that last shot that he hit was an incredible shot.
Yeah, he got the ISO on Reggie Jackson, which is what he wanted.
Yeah,
back cheese, and then they didn't bank it. Actually, he just made it.
Yeah,
maybe they should have doubled.
He was contested too.
Yeah, it was definitely. Reggie's a bit shorter than him, but
pretty good defense. It wasn't terrible defense.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible defense.
It's a tough shot to make.
Yeah,
especially for you.
Yeah, especially for me.
Couldn't reach the hoop, probably.
Oh. But but then in Game 5, Paul George returned to form. Stewart famously said Luka has exited the building because he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was nowhere nearly as present in Game 5 as he was in Game 4. The Clippers actually got a pretty deciding win. They kind of blew out the Mavericks in a way.
They did.
Good game by the Clippers, and it looks more and more like they're going to win the series now, like Stewart said.
Yeah, they won.
I wonder if Porzingis will be back for Game 6.
Wasn't it like 20-something?
They won by – oh, my God. Holy shit. They won by 43.
Really?
Whoa.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. The Clippers scored 154 points.
Oh my God.
I didn't really realize that. I guess Paul George just kind of decided to go off in the fourth. I only watched the first 3 quarters. and they were up by 30 at one point. But usually teams, when they're down 30, like the last quarter, they cut it to like
They don't
get back
try
like 15.
as much. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. No
Much as
mercy.
Yeah. Tough game, for Dallas. It's pretty demoralizing after that win a little while ago.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe they can bring it back for one more game. But
I
they're
wouldn't
not
be
gonna win the
shocked.
series.
I'd give them more chance than the freaking Blazers, but
By a lot.
I still think they're going to lose in that game.
I'd say this is
They
more
do
like 30%.
Yeah. If Porzingis does play, also is important. But yeah, well, kudos to Luka, even if they do lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's got next?
Good for him. All right, and then finally – oh, no, not finally. Sorry. Then we have the Nuggets versus the Jazz series, another series that has been a little bit shocking. The Jazz actually with a 3-2 lead. The Nuggets avoided elimination yesterday, I believe. Yeah, it was yesterday. They avoided elimination yesterday, getting the win in Game 5, extending this thing to Game 6. But they're still down 2-3. Screw the Nuggets, dude. That's all I have to say.
I mean, for all the credit that Luka's getting, and rightly so, Donovan Mitchell has pretty much been every bit as good as Luka has been. I mean, 2 50-point games to one series, one 57-point game, which is insane. And at the same time, Jamal Murray has been absolutely astounding. And
Oh my God.
pretty much Denver's stars, Murray's borderline, but Murray and Jokic have been great in this series. I can't say anything bad about them, really. But the rest of the team just hasn't been performing well, especially defensively. They just can't seem to be guarding Utah at all, except for in the second half of last night's game. But literally in every other game, they just can't seem to keep up with the Jazz shooting and scoring. And I mean, I would lean towards Utah in the end because I think Denver's probably pretty tired. But I would give Denver a shot because I still think they have a lot of talent.
This has been a sneaky good series. I didn't expect it to be quite this good.
I expected it to be more like this, but in favor of Denver.
Yeah,
like
reverse order.
Like Utah definitely puts up a good fight, but Denver takes them out in 5 or 6. But it seems like
in my first draft of how I was predicting the series, I thought this was going to go to 7, but I thought it was going to be a pretty unconvincing 7. I thought
like blowouts each game.
Like what?
Like a blowout in each game. Or like what?
Yeah, it would be. Oh yeah, this series could have ended in 5, but somehow it got to 7, and now the Nuggets are just going to win because they're the better team.
Right.
But no, this has been a really entertaining series, and I'm still going to give the slight edge to the Nuggets. I think that they'll be able to go Game 6, and then Game 7 at that point. It's just in my eyes, Game 6 will be more of a team game, but Game 7 is just going to be who can. Or will the Nuggets be able to slow down Donovan Mitchell? Because they're not going to stop him. But if they can slow him down, if they can hold him to less than 30 points, then they're going to win that game, and they're going to win the series. And I think they're kind of primed to do that. If they can actually do decent matchups and maybe put Torrey Craig on him, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. Well,
I think Game 6 honestly might be the decider for the Nuggets. I mean, obviously, if they lose, they're out. But
nice insight.
But I think if they win, though, is what I was getting to. If they win, I think they're going to win the series. I think they'll win Game 7 in that scenario is what I was trying to get at.
So you say it's actually more like do or die for Utah. They need to win the Game 6. Because I think you're right.
Yeah.
Actually. Momentum will be so much on Denver's side if they come back from 3-1 to 3-3 that
especially if that's the only game that goes to 7. I mean, the next series that we're going to talk about might go to 7, but especially if that's the only series that goes to 7.
Right.
Yeah.
First ever bubble Game 7.
Yeah. I mean, that would be very interesting. And I mean, it's been a very good series as of late as well. It's been more entertaining than I thought. Like Chandler said, it's kind of a dark horse when it comes to those entertaining series. It's been fun to watch. And then finally, we have the Rockets versus the Thunder, another back-and-forth series. I think, like Chandler said, probably one of the only other series that we could project going to 7 games, unless if the Magic roar back from a 3-1 series deficit.
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to say the Mavericks.
Defeat the Bucks in Game 7 in overtime.
I would pay you
over
good money
Giannis
if that happens. I will pay you a working wage if that happens.
$12.75.
Yep.
All right, yeah. So what do we have to say about this Rockets Thunder series? I mean, obviously it's also been very entertaining. I would say one of the more entertaining series is in the bubble as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Nick, do you have anything? Nick, do you have anything?
I don't know, dog. I mean, the weird thing about this series is like, it's like the opposite of like the Denver series because like those teams just go back and forth. And I love watching it, but like these teams just shoot a bunch of threes and go back and forth at each other the whole game. Like it's less like a little bit less like heart-pounding finishes. Like I'll give them a bit of credit for coming back and everything, but it's just like one team plays well and then the other team plays well, and that's kind of how it's been. I'd still lean towards Houston, especially because I do think even though Westbrook was supposed to be out for this Game 5, potentially if the games do happen to come back and there is a Game 5, say in 2 or 3 days, then Westbrook would play in this hypothetical Game 5. But if he does come back, I'd give them the edge in the series. But I mean, you got to give credit to OKC for coming back not only down 2-0, but also down in Game 3 by 15 points in the third quarter. To overcome the hot shooting of the Rockets, and Chris Paul for playing well down the stretch of both Game 3 and 4.
Chris Paul has been very impressive, not just even in this series, but in the whole season in general.
Yeah, and he wasn't that great in the first 2 games, but
yeah, I mean,
that's what I was going to say as well.
I'm talking about like the whole season, even to get here. Like they had, I think it was like a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs or something.
That's what that's what ESPN forecasted them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were projected to be closer to the first pick than the playoffs, and then
I didn't think they were going to be that good.
I thought they could have got the 8th seed, but like I didn't think they were going to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Chris Paul has really turned around this team for the better. It's been fun to watch, and like Stuart said, it was hard for him to heat up in the first couple of games, but he's finally starting to come into his form and making this thing a very competitive series.
Yeah. And Shea.
All right,
Shea's playing a lot of minutes. He's playing good defense finally.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All 3 of the guards are playing well. And Dort's been playing good defense on Harden.
Yeah, he's been playing really well.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool.
For him, but yeah.
Any other points to add here, or are we good to move on to another news segment that we have for the episode?
I think we're good.
All right, so that was this week's main recap segment. Now we're going to move on to a segment that will engage you, the audience, more. It will get you involved in the episodes, give you a chance to ask some questions. This is the Nosebleeds Podcast segment, Questions from the Nosebleeds. All right. In this segment, it will give our viewers the opportunity to ask us questions. We're going to have it on both of the NHL episode and the NBA episode, where you can ask questions to us.
Wait, what the heck? Sorry. Wait, weren't the Flyers up 3-0?
Yeah. I just saw that notification.
Yeah.
DONIS was trash talking in the chat too.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, look at the Islanders. Look, if Flyers gonna go to the Eastern Conference. I can't wait for this episode to end. I'm gonna go flame them."
It's in overtime right now. With the first.
Yeah,
no. Wait, they just won. Wait, the Flyers just scored. The Flyers just scored.
No, damn it.
It says 4-3.
Come on.
It says 4-3.
Wow, live reactions. Oh,
yeah,
man,
goal scored by
Felipe
Felipe Myers. Scored the goal.
My God.
All right.
Great.
Well, series is 1-1
That
now,
was scary, though. That was scary. But anyway, back to this segment. Both in the NHL, and yeah, if you want to ask us a question about that Flyers game, go ahead. You can ask it in our NHL episode that airs every Monday. So every week, you're going to have the opportunity to ask us either NHL or MLB questions on Monday's episode, and then NBA questions on Wednesday's episode. And we'll pick a few questions that have been asked, and we'll answer them here on the show. So today we have 3 questions asked from the viewers. We'll first start with one of our viewers, Dylan, who asked, who is at fault for the Sixers' early exit in the playoffs?
You.
Yeah, it's Nick.
Me.
Marcus.
Dang. I'm sorry, Philadelphia.
Well,
sorry,
okay.
Donis.
Okay, let me think about this for a second. So there's a couple. It's like a case within a case here. So the first reason is Ben Simmons being injured, because I do think he's the most important player on their team. And even if, let's say he stays healthy, let's say they get the 5 seed, let's say they play Indiana or something, like Like, I don't know. There's a way they could have gotten out of the first round. If they play us with Simmons, I'm still picking Boston. If they play Miami, I'd probably still pick Miami. But anyway, Simmons is a big, easily their second best player and a big part of their team. Now, outside of that, then I'd say Elton Brand is the reason because
That's what I was just gonna say.
Because he signed these players to these contracts here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
He's the
general
primary
manager,
reason.
for those of you who don't know.
He's the primary reason, not necessarily that they lost, but the fact that the roster was built this way that they would just be a first-round exit. But even further back than that, I mean, you could almost hawk it up to the NBA itself because a lot of people used to talk about this, but when Sam Hinkie first tried the process, actually, I wouldn't even blame the NBA and Sam. I would blame Colangelo a little bit here too, the previous general manager, because he also made the very foolish decisions in the draft. In 2014, he drafted who? Oh, no, he drafted Joel Embiid. In 13, he traded for Noel. I mean, I don't know who else they would have gotten in that draft, but he traded for Noel that didn't really pan out. Then in 2015, the biggest mistake, obviously, to me, is drafting Jahlil Okafor over Porzingis.
Oh.
And then finally, in 17, trading for the Celtics pick and drafting Fultz over Jason Tatum. So those are the if they had one of those two guys, let's say they just get one, not two, they would have fit perfectly on this team and they would have been better. They wouldn't have signed those other players. This would have been a totally different thing. I mean, think about it. Let's say they draft Porzingis, right? They don't even probably make the move for Jimmy Butler because they already have this unbelievable core that would be winning even more games in the first place. So I'd put the blame on both of the Sixers GMs and as like the general. And we've already talked about Brand's mistakes. But, I mean, he was put in that position in more ways than one. I mean, Horford, both the contracts weren't great, but like he was just trying to help his team win. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at the players picked after Nerlens Noel, just based on what
they aren't going to be that good.
No, I'm ready.
They're not that good.
Oh, okay.
2013 draft was pretty bad.
Yeah, it's probably one of the worst drafts in maybe ever. Yeah, I mean,
apart from Giannis.
the only except Giannis.
There's only like 3 good players, 3 or 4.
Yeah, there's
4.
Victor Oladipo, who was the second pick, and then I mean the only player that I could have seen them taking, but if I'm thinking of their team correctly, they wouldn't have really wanted C.J. McCollum, who was picked 10 in that draft.
Yeah,
no, was picked 6.
And then Giannis was
and Michael
15.
Carter Williams. You can't really. I don't think you can really blame the 76ers for that pick because he was very good as a rookie. But then Giannis was picked 15. Obviously, nobody expected that. Schroeder at pick 17.
And then in second round,
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, right in the first. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then nobody else. Nobody else was any good. Like I'm looking at this. Nobody else. Joffrey Laverne and pick 55. It was a bad draft. It was a really bad draft.
One of the worst.
But they, I believe, because they traded to get Nerlens Noel. They traded.
Yeah, they traded with the Pelicans. They traded Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Who just had an All-Star season.
Not a good trade. That was a not good trade.
Atrocious. I mean, honestly, maybe Drew doesn't even stay there, but they could have traded him for a better asset than Nerlens Noel.
Yeah.
So.
Especially when they just went best player available every year, which is like the idea of the process, but you also don't pick 3 centers in a row. Like it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult.
Especially, no offense to my dude, but Jahlil was not exactly where the NBA was going as far as player profile. He doesn't have a jump shot, so like, what is he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll put the blame on the Sixers management,
front office,
not the players, and not even really. I mean, I'll put some on the coach,
a little bit.
Yeah, Horford, he declined so sharply.
He was terrible, and I enjoyed it so.
Yeah, I did too. To be honest, I was because of all these reports that he was going to be on a team-friendly deal. I think that makes me most upset is like Kyrie left, and we all talk about that and stuff. But like, he left, and then that was it. With Horford, he still could have fit in this roster. We literally need Tice is great, but Horford from last season was better than Tice this season. Like,
yes,
we could use a center to put us over the top, and he was going to take a team friendly deal, and then he just dipped. So,
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I can't believe. I don't know if you guys saw this, but in our last episode, the NHL episode, we happened to be talking. Like, he made some comparison, like Al Horford's points per game to, like, some ERA of a pitcher or something like that. And then I asked her his thing, and he said that if the Sixers had the BC High coach, they would be able to make it to the Eastern Conference Final without –
Who said that?
I smell a little bit of cap in
DONIS.
Well,
I
he's
smell a
wrong
little
because that
bit of
team
cap.
isn't as talented as the top 3 teams in the East, even with Stone.
I mean, it was kind of Brett Brown's fault, but it wasn't like, it was kind of more the events
Was it,
leading
though?
up to this season.
Yeah, I mean,
What
he's not a great
specific
coach.
moments could he have changed? His
He's-
rotations were fine.
I mean, he
He
could
could've
have
just played
orthodox.
sat down the
Could've
locker room and tried to
Yeah,
work out some of those
exactly.
kinks
He clearly
that were
didn't-
obviously going on.
Yeah, he clearly wasn't a good team motivator.
Yeah.
There were so many issues in the last few years. I mean, maybe he was good at making substitutions, but a coach needs to be a lot more than that. Especially in the league, there's a tight group of guys. It's not like the NFL. This isn't a 53-man team. There's 11 or 12 guys. In a playoff situation, there's only about 8 or 9 guys that are going to contribute. It's important that these guys are, gelling together and have good chemistry with the coach and are responding to him. And clearly they didn't do that very well, throughout the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, the Sixers vlog, the last
And also,
one,
I mean,
pretty
I
awkward. Their trip home.
One more thing is he's not the GM, but I'm sure he had some influence in free agency, and I'm sure that he was consulted about not bringing Butler.
Yeah.
So you can blame them for that one too.
Well, rest in peace, Sixers. Thank you, Dylan, for the question. Next, we have a question from Sam who says, when building a franchise, who would you take, Giannis or Luka?
So who wants to start this one? Because it's going to be our.
Why don't we
I
have
have the
Chandler
dissenting
start?
opinion. I have the dissenting opinion, so you guys start.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I'd say it's closer than people would think. But right now, if I'm an NBA GM or owner or something, I'd want Giannis. He's only 25 years old. Luka's 21, so it's 4 years, but it's not like 8 years or something like that. Giannis has at least 10 good years left. He is better than Luka, and he's as of right now, I'm trying to sell tickets, and he seems like a guy that I don't know. I mean, you have to take that risk that Luka could get injured or doesn't get as good as you think, and Giannis could A, still get a little bit better, and B, he's just the better player right now. So I would have trouble not taking him. But that being said, I mean, it's not like a huge difference. Like there's also other things because like, for example, Luka is younger and Luka is a player that could develop athleticism. Giannis already has the athleticism. So there are definitely arguments to be made for Luka, but I just think if I was taking that risk and I was starting a franchise with one player, I would pick Giannis right now because he's the best player in the league, arguably, and he's still only 20, not quite like just entering his prime.
Nick, you go.
Yeah, I will agree with Stuart in saying that, although Luka has been very impressive, especially as of late, I would say that Giannis is the better player there. And as well, like Stuart said, when you're trying to sell tickets and stuff like that, Giannis's marketing ability, being the Greek freak and all, is very successful when it comes in that market. And plus, like Stuart said again, the experience factor coming in there, having a 4-year gap on Luka, already has the experience, doesn't need any more time to kind of flourish into the NBA. He's kind of already at that point, and he has room to get better. And like Stuart said, he has longevity. He could be around for another good 10 years, something like that. I think he's the better option than Luka because, God forbid, Luka, he's not in his zone yet. He just totally falls off the map and drops off. That would be a loss right there when you could have had Giannis, who's already flourished and proven himself here in the NBA in the past couple of years.
So, okay. I'm going to preface this by saying that I picked Luka Doncic as the face of my franchise. So I want to cast everybody's mind back to yeah, you're going to do this.
No, I don't want to do this.
Yes,
No.
You're doing this.
I'm not going to respond to it
2004,
then.
when the Charlotte, then Bobcats, now the Hornets, came into the NBA.
Nick doesn't know what you're talking about already. He's already lost.
I've already lost.
You've already lost Nick. He doesn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he doesn't know what the Bobcats even are.
Yeah.
Okay, the viewers know. I do. Oh, well, no, I don't know. Podcasts are. Okay,
You
yeah.
fucking dumbass. They were the Hornets.
Whoa!
They were the Hornets. How do you not
Well,
know
I
that?
know who the Hornets are, obviously.
They are the
Bobcats
Hornets. They
until
changed their name.
2013, from 2004 to 2013. So they have in their 19-year existence, not 19-year. That's bad math.
16 maybe.
15-year
Yeah.
existence. Yeah. They have made the playoffs 3 times, none of which being over the 6th seed.
Yeah, and they never went around.
Yeah, they've also the closest they came was in 2015.
16.
Yeah, 15, 16. Yeah, 15,
Yeah,
16 season.
They went 7 with the Heat.
Yeah, and
Dang.
so first off, Giannis is. Stuart already said a lot of the arguments that I would have. Giannis is 25. Luka's 21. Another thing, Giannis has already been in the league for 7 years. This is his 8th upcoming, and Luka only 2 years. If I am the way that I see it, it's similar to asking if you're going to pick young LeBron, except a less athletic young LeBron versus Giannis. And I'm picking LeBron because LeBron is not just going to make himself better; he's going to make.
So Luka's
around.
LeBron now.
What?
Luka's LeBron James.
Yeah.
Okay,
Luka
we're done. We're done. We stop this. I'm not.
Look at the stat lines. Look at their.
He cannot move even close to what LeBron was moving in the second season.
Did you hear what I said?
Luka is slow. Luka's slow.
What I said?
I'm done. We're done with this conversation. I'm leaving.
Oh.
Did you hear what I said?
If you say stats, I'm leaving right now.
No. Did you hear what I said, though?
What?
I said a less athletic LeBron.
Yeah,
I
like
understand.
far less athletic.
Yeah. I'm talking about their playmaking and their scoring abilities.
Okay.
They score the ball in different ways. Don't get me wrong. That's an error thing and that's a physicality thing. But if you look at their stat lines and the way that they make their teams play, they're more similar than they are unsimilar. Like, do you agree with that or no? I'm not talking to you, Nick.
Kind of. I do
Wow.
think LeBron's a good
Thank you.
like Luka, but LeBron is so much more explosive off the dribble than Luka. Luka is like
I'm not disagreeing with you.
He's a Harden or Magic Johnson the type scorer. Like he's gonna score in
Sure,
ways.
I'll do Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is a better comparison, but obviously not Magic Johnson because Magic Johnson was 6'9" and purely a point guard.
Well, I think Luka's like 6'9", but
he's 6'7".
Oh, so, okay.
Close enough.
But also, so that kind of is my point, but that's also somewhat beside the point because you have 10 years. I'd say 10 might be a little bit generous for Giannis just because of how his game is predicated on athleticism. I'd give him 8 years of like really like high level and then 3 years of being a borderline superstar star in that like top 20, 25 range in the NBA. That's what I would say. But Luka's game has a lot more longevity. He will be in his prime in 8 years. Like he will be 29 in 8 years. And then after that, he probably has another 6 years. So he has 15 years. He has the entire existence of the Charlotte Hornets / Bobcats. Yes, Nick.
I just want to say, I'm not as qualified to make this statement, but obviously you would pick, like you were comparing him to young LeBron, but now looking back on young LeBron, we know what he became. We don't know what Luka is going to become. God forbid he falls off a cliff and absolutely totally drops off to what people are expecting him to be.
You could say that about literally any player ever. You could say that about Giannis. Giannis is going to tear all of his ACLs, and he's never going to be the same player. You could say that
I'm not
about
saying that because Giannis is flourished right now.
Okay, well,
Luka's
if
still
we're gonna bring
developing.
injury, but if we're gonna bring injuries,
I'm not saying
Luka's
injury.
already have like his fair share of injuries, like way more
and
than
Luka's
LeBron
game
did.
is more not like defensive to it, but like you've said, I didn't mean to say that LeBron could be compared to Luka in terms of athleticism. I just meant in terms of their fit, like literal stat line and their impact on their teammates. But Luka, yeah, you're right. Luka has gotten injured before, but you see how it's impacted his game. It hasn't, or at least not. At least
but it shows that he's not as durable as LeBron or Giannis. He's
But
already
does that
missed
matter?
tons of.
But
Yeah,
when
And
it
he's
does
facing
matter.
these injuries young. Imagine how he's going to look in 6 years if he's still playing like this.
I mean, you can't necessarily make that argument, but I'm just saying, like,
It's going to take a toll on him eventually.
I'd say there's a
In the
higher
last
risk of
two-
Luka
in the last
getting
2
injured in the
years.
next 10 years than Giannis.
Since
Badly
Luka's
injured.
entered the league, Giannis has played only one more game or 2 more games than Luka has.
Yeah, but Luka's had like way more injuries. Giannis is just resting.
And does okay. I mean,
Bang.
I do understand that. That's a good point that they are definitely going to rest him more. But you can't really rest a player when he's your only good player. Think about how expansion works. You have 7 or 8 players protected. You're not going to be
that's a good
getting the
point.
cream of the crop. You're going to be getting below average players that you have to make better. And then also, so I want to actually talk about,
I would. Yeah,
so I also want to talk about
that,
a little bit more about the
I can see
Bobcats.
that point. Like,
Yeah.
I would want Luka more on a bad team than Giannis, but on a good team, I'd rather have
That's
Giannis.
like my big point. And then I
Yeah.
also want to talk about just expansion in general and how the Bobcats handled it. So the
Poorly.
Bobcats, like they didn't handle it as poorly as they could have. Like, believe me, they didn't make great draft decisions, but they hired Larry Brown. And Larry Brown was the head coach of the Pistons when they won in 2004, coach of the year in 2001. Just an all-around, he's a successful head coach. They had him for 3 years, and in those 3 years, they made the playoffs once, never winning a playoff game, and they won.
When? Wait, what year did he get hired?
2008 to 2010.
Oh, okay. I thought it was when they first came to the league. Okay, yeah. Sure.
No.
They made the playoffs in 2009. They lost in the first round.
Yes, that was his only playoff run as head coach of the
Yeah, they made some terrible draft decisions.
They did make some really bad draft decisions. But you also have to – you mean, as much as nowadays it's not harder to make bad draft decisions, but you see it less frequently as the scouting process has become more streamlined and more similar among all organizations in the league. So you can't really say like, oh yeah, Giannis is going to have to carry the team all by himself, so that's why I want to have Giannis. You have to think about like all 12 players that you have in your roster, all 15 players you have in your roster, all 9 players in the rotation, and how you're going to maximize, I don't know, how are you going to maximize Kyle Korver, 24-year-old Kyle Korver on your team? Are you going to have Giannis in the paint and just have him pass the ball out? You could definitely do that, but the way that the league has been moving, I would much rather have Luka, who's going to not just create his own shot on the perimeter, score at all 3 levels, and help everyone else score at all 3 levels.
And
so
for
for
the
me,
team score 25 points on his head because he can't defend.
That's why you assemble him with 3-and-D players that are going to be discarded by other teams.
And then you sign Giannis.
Look at Giannis. Giannis is all around.
Yeah, isn't all the players 3-and-D? Aren't all of his teammates like 3-and-D players?
Giannis's?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the Bucks have assembled a really good team around him.
Yeah.
That takes time for a rebuild team. I mean,
yeah, but the question is, like, if you were to build your team around one player, who would it be?
So,
Giannis or Luka?
Am I doing it through the conventional
You wouldn't be building
draft?
the Mavs. You'd be building your own.
Am I doing everything that, like, if I were, let's say I spend, what is it? It's like a lot of money. It's like some 300-something million to get a team in the NBA, something like that. Let's say I do that. I'm getting into the league. I'm going through the expansion draft. I'm going through the real draft. I'm in this for the long haul. Is that what I'm doing? Is that the question?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Then
Yes.
I'm picking Luka Doncic.
Yeah, then I would also. You're surrounded, Nick.
What do you mean?
Well,
If you have an NBA team and you're going to build your core around one player, who would it be? That's
How
the
long do
question,
you have
right?
Giannis in your core? How long do you have
When
Giannis
building
in your
a franchise, who would you take, Giannis or Luka?
from the ground, so it's an expansion
From the
draft.
ground.
And I pick other expansion
from
players.
the ground?
Yes,
Nick,
that's
what
how
you're-
That's too
expansion works.
technical.
That's what you're
how
implying.
expansion works.
That's what you're implying. That's what
I'm
you just
just
said
reading
yes
the
to.
question.
Well, but we need to decide the specifics of the question then.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're going to build – are you saying we want to build a team off the ground?
Well,
We are
yes.
I
doing-
thought you
so
meant-
do you know what the
I thought you
expansion
meant if you
process
had
is?
– yes, I do. It's like
So-
an expansion team. There's an expansion draft where you protect certain players,
Yep.
and then you enter the regular draft.
Yes, and you
Yeah.
don't get do you get I think you get the first pick.
No,
Or
but
you might get the third
no.
pick.
they give you good odds in the lottery.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get – yeah.
Yeah, and then like the
Same thing for
Bobcats
hockey.
happened to win the first pick, and they picked him back.
Yes.
Or no, they did. Yeah, second.
They had the sec
Dwight Howard went first.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
All right,
if
so-
we're doing it like that, I mean, if you're telling me if you want the question to be who's the better player, Luka Doncic or Giannis Antetokounmpo, that is not a difficult question. The answer is Giannis.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me if I'm going through an expansion draft, if I'm going through the NBA draft, if I'm in this for a 15-year window about trying to win as many games as possible, I'm picking Luka Doncic, and it's not especially difficult for me to say that.
Well, because he's the younger player.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's part of the argument.
Yeah.
That's the reason that I chose.
Well-
Not the reason. That's
okay,
a reason
well-
I chose.
Yeah.
I guess we agree to agree. I don't know what to say
Yeah,
here. I mean,
I
I would
guess,
agree
yeah.
with you that I would
In the
pick
two
Luka.
scenarios, yeah. If
I
you're
would
building
pick-
a team from the ground up,
Yeah, I would
Oh,
pick
sorry,
Luka.
there we go.
If I'm
That's
picking
how
an
I
expansion,
interpreted the question.
yeah, I don't know how I was supposed to interpret it. I wasn't sure. For the next 10
I
years,
took it into
I
literal
was saying that
rules.
that you'd take like any team in the league right now, apart from maybe some of the contenders, and then pick one of those 2 players on your roster.
yeah, that's what I was
I
kind of
think
thinking
it's
too. I got
absolutely
confused when you asked. So
Yeah.
made things more confusing.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
interpreted it as expansion because
I mean,
like building
yeah.
a franchise from the ground is what I thought.
All right. All right.
I mean, I don't know.
so-
I'd probably still think about picking Giannis in that situation, but we'll just have to agree to disagree.
It's close, but Giannis is exceptional.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
he was terrible.
He's pretty good at basketball.
Yeah,
So
no,
he's all right. He's all right.
He sucks.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's
terrible.
subpar, but that's all
He's
right.
literally
He's
the
great.
worst player in the league. I would rather have Nene right now.
Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on my team.
I'd rather have Michael Beasley,
I'd rather
Greg
have
Oden.
me.
Greg Oden.
Nah, anything but
I'd
you.
rather
Nick.
have Greg Oden.
Anything. All right. Final question. We have a question from Ryan saying, "Will the Sixers trade
No.
Embiid or Simmons?"
This one's pretty quick. Well,
This is a tough question.
when?
I assume Ryan means in this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too.
My answer is pretty simple. Because of the injury, I'm sure it'll buy them another year. There's no way they're trading either of those players in this offseason.
Yeah.
Next season, though, who knows?
Going into the bubble, I thought that this was going to be their last season, but then, like Stuart said, there was an injury. I
Yeah.
still wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility because
Yeah, maybe there's like a really good offer or something. Because
Exactly
teams
right.
might be thinking
Yeah.
about it and become desperate that they want to get Embiid before he becomes more available, or Simmons by
Yeah.
the following offseason.
to try and slightly tweak the question, if we were to say who would be traded first,
Yeah,
Embiid or Simmons,
I think
or
we
in a
should answer
hypothetical
both.
situation where they both get traded, or where the Sixers are trying to fully rebuild, I would say that Embiid goes first.
I would say Simmons.
You're wrong
Why?
because there's tons of buzz. Nick,
No,
this
no,
is
no,
what
no,
you
no.
need to start reading NBA stuff. No, there's been
Sure.
all kinds of shit. No. There's been all kinds of shit dropped this year from multiple sources where it's saying that the Sixers organization prefers Ben.
You're
So,
right, but I want to hear.
yeah.
No,
why
but
Nick says that.
this recent injury is what I'm saying. He seems very injury prone.
he's
So if
not,
you're going to
so.
keep a guy
Hey,
for
that's not.
So is it Nick? Hey Nick, what happened to Joel Embiid's first 2 NBA seasons? What happened to him?
Didn't play.
yeah,
that.
okay, he was injured, but
He's way
Didn't
more
play
injury
that.
prone than Simmons. So he's
Yeah.
also older. So there's no argument here. You got to make something else up.
I mean, I don't know. I guess you're right. I mean, I'm going to just wave the white flag on that one.
I don't want you to be dumb on live TV here.
Yeah.
I'll wave the white flag on that one, I guess. But,
I mean,
okay.
if there
I think
wasn't
both
any,
guys would
the
go
thing is that I don't know.
relatively soon,
I don't know if I disagree with
not
you
apart from each other.
that Embiid they should trade Simmons, but there was so much buzz coming out of the organization, different reporters this year that they prefer Simmons out of the two of them. That I just feel like in an event of a trade, it's going to be Embiid.
I agree with that outlook. I think that Embiid is more built to the way the NBA is being played right now. But at the same time, I think that Simmons is more valuable to the organization and their current hierarchy. It wasn't a secret at the beginning of the season. People were saying Ben Simmons is our guy. Embiid is also there, but he's not the main priority. It's like I don't know, like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, except it's not like that. But
Yeah,
that's a good comparison in the way that we would be much more willing to trade Jaylen Brown than we ever would Jason Tatum.
I mean, I think I was just thinking of it from a perspective of if I were to choose who they were going to trade.
Yeah, I don't know if I disagree with you, but it's just the
Yeah.
buzz that was coming out of the organization.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If I were to choose, I'd probably still choose Embiid just
Yeah, me
because
too.
you'll get more for him, and because I think that Simmons can be a really, really good player.
I think
Probably a
Simmons' ceiling.
superstar.
I think Simmons' ceiling is higher. I think Embiid's pretty much already reached his peak.
Yeah. At the same time,
Oh, that's a
also
good point.
you can build a team around Simmons. They haven't
Way
done
easier,
that
yeah.
well. They tried to do that, and I mean JJ Redick was a really good piece for that. They got a lot of 3-and-D type players. They got I mean, it'll have to be a similarly built team to the Bucks. Now that I think about it, you need somebody who can just go get you a bucket. You need a bunch of really quality defenders and people who can stretch the floor.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's not looking good for the Sixers either way. I mean, I think that possibility that we've been talking about a couple months ago with Embiid going to the Celtics is still obviously on the table, but as it goes on a little bit less, it seems like a little bit less and less likely, honestly.
Yeah, I just think. Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think they're going to trade both of them.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No.
That would be-
I mean,
that would be
unless if
terrible.
they're just unless if it's like a first overall pick scenario, maybe.
Even
Yeah,
then, this draft isn't very good unless you're going to draft LaMelo.
maybe next season or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was going to
but-
say if you want to do this next year, if you want to give them one more season and then you trade them both for something valuable. Like you trade them for one of them for a star player and one of them for like the 4th pick.
Yeah, one of them for, yeah.
Like it's going to be similar to when Jimmy Butler was traded to Minnesota and they got the 6th pick, or the 7th pick, which became Lauri Markkanen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, my gut says it's not going to work out for them, but you never know.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't think that they are going to work well together, at least in the current team that they have together.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you make a lot of big deals. You make a lot of big deals, and sure, Simmons goes down, but you make a lot of big deals, and you go from losing 4-1 to the Celtics to losing 4-0 to the Celtics. Like, at the end of the day, like we've said multiple times in this podcast, the sports in general, but specifically the NBA, it's a business. Like, if you're not like, all that matters, doesn't matter how you get there, it matters that you get there. And they didn't get there, and they had a slightly worse result than they did before. And then even 2 years before, or last year, they had a much worse result, obviously. And not getting Game 7 by Kawhi Leonard. Getting Game 4 by Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker.
Game 4.
But I will say this. If the Sixers were to trade, it wouldn't be such a bad idea to trade this offseason just to avoid that possibility that one or both of these players fall off drastically during next season, and then you lose the value that would have been there this offseason for them.
I mean, I see the chance of that are pretty low, but I guess.
Also, I mean there's another good argument to be made to maybe trade them. If I were the 76ers right now, I would say that the best option is to go into the trade deadline in this upcoming year, see if it's working. If it's not working, blow it up, because this free agency class and this draft upcoming are both really good.
Yeah.
You have Giannis, you have LeBron. Does LeBron have a player option? He might.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, whatever. You have Chris Paul. You have Gordon Hayward. Even you have Paul George.
He'll probably Hayward's. Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Hayward's. This is his opt-in year, I believe, and then next year is when
next year's
unrestricted.
Who cares? He's like a 15 points per game scorer.
But the point is that this upcoming free agency would be this would be good timing. That if you decide that the combination isn't going to work, this would be a good free agency to completely build a new team.
Mm.
Like you get the cap, you package one of them with a couple bad contracts and get a pick also. Like to a team that really is desperate for Embiid. You give up Horford, you give up a couple seconds and you get a first back and some role fringe starter player. I could realistically see that happening. Because that gives them the flexibility to try to pursue Giannis or Kawhi or literally like any of those players. It is a loaded class. Mm-hmm. And then you also just fill up the team with decent, maybe like starter to 6-man type players who are going to be undervalued in the free agency class, especially because a lot of players are on the block or on the market, with like stars going out, the lesser players are going to be undervalued, and you can build a solid team out of just the scraps left over from free agency.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Any other points to add about these questions, or do you think we're good?
I think
we're good. Yeah. Thank you all for the questions.
Yeah, thank you everybody for submitting these questions, and I hope you enjoyed to kind of engage in the conversation a little bit, and we're looking forward to more questions that you may have for next week's episode. So keep bringing them in. We really enjoy you adding your input to the conversation, and if you're a hockey fan, you can also ask questions on the hockey episode every Monday. And if you want to ask a baseball question, you can ask a baseball question too, because got baseball questions there too. Chandler's just shaking his head no.
They're really okay with baseball and hockey.
Screw the sports apparently. But like we said at the top of the episode, we're not going to be doing any predictions this week just because of the boycotts that have started taking place today in the NBA. Obviously, there's more important things to focus on right now in the world than playing basketball. So we will keep attentive and stay tuned to see when those games will be played, and then we'll decide whether or not to make an Instagram post or just come back next week with our updated records and stuff like that for games that we can predict off screen. So we'll let you know. Best way to stay up to date with those updates would be to follow us on Instagram at nosebleeds__podcast. We just had a big announcement go up today. So definitely I recommend you going to check out the Instagram page to check it out. And we also have a lot more big announcements and ideas planned for the show. So stay tuned. And other than that, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this episode of the Nosebleeds Podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe here on ACMi Sports and hit the like button on this episode and all the other episodes that we've done so far. And if you like hockey, like I've said about 1,000 times, we got our hockey episode coming up on Monday. And I will say this now. Our big announcement is that we will be starting a fantasy football league, a Nosebleeds Podcast. If I go 1-11, that's going to be really sad. Hopefully I don't.
You have to kick you in the balls.
Again?
No.
He's 2-13. He's 2-13.
Yeah, it's 2-13.
Sorry, my fault.
Yeah, a drastic difference.
Yeah.
But
He started 0-9, so at least he finished.
I did start 0-9. When I got that win, I was hyped. I think it was because Henry didn't change his outline or his lineup.
Probably. That's all the momentum.
A bunch of players that weren't playing. But anyway, that was a momentum shifter. But if you like fantasy football, stay tuned because our fantasy football draft will be going up this Sunday. Today's Wednesday. This Sunday is when the NFL fantasy draft will go up. And also, maybe just a spoiler here, but actually, no, I won't say that yet. But anyway, yeah, just stay tuned.
Real professional, Nick.
I know, real professional, Nick. Stay tuned for this Sunday where we're going to have the NFL fantasy football draft going up for you. So that should be entertaining. It'll be a Nosebleeds Podcast exclusive league, and we hope you're all excited about it. So we'll see you here on Sunday to watch the fantasy draft, and then back Monday for our NHL episode. And then for our NBA fans out there, our regulars, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back here next Wednesday with another NBA playoffs recap episode. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching. My name is Nick Antonakis from ACMi Sports. We'll see you next time.